Hey, Red Letter Disciples, welcome back. We got another episode. Our goal in this podcast is to challenge you to be the greatest disciple of Jesus that you can possibly become. And when I say our, I speak on behalf of Red Letter Living. I speak on behalf of my co-host, Chris Johnson, who is the pastor of Resurrection Church in Sanford, Florida. If you're around Sanford, Florida, give Resurrection Church a chance. Hey, Brian Mueller is an incredible man. He is the guest on our podcast today. He is the president of Grand Canyon University, and we get into an awesome conversation with Brian, who has been a worldwide leader, pioneer with online education. So we talk about how churches can use the online world to grow disciples. We talk as well about his strategy of serving, especially the city that he's a part of, and how serving Jesus has not only revitalized the city and rejuvenated the campus at Grand Canyon University, but also brings people together on both sides of the political aisle, the economic side. Like when you serve Jesus, it's amazing the invitations and the things that come your way. So I can't wait for you to hear his story and what God is doing at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. Today's sponsor is Child Beyond International, CBI. I love the work that Child Beyond International is doing in Guatemala. This is a mission organization that is the most intentional overseas organization about rescuing the vulnerable kids, the kids that honestly even other great organizations may miss. I love how they don't let anyone fall through the cracks. And I'd love for you to check out this organization. And I bet if you checked them out and went along with them, I bet your life could be changed in just 10,000 minutes. You might say, why 10,000? 10,000 minutes is the exact amount of time spent on a 7-day mission trip. Child Beyond International, they set everything up for you and your church to experience a powerful overseas mission trip that not only will change the life of someone in Guatemala, but amazingly, it changes the lives of those who go on the mission trip as well. So you and your church can be transformed in just 10,000 minutes. If you've heard my story on the podcast at all, you know that my discipleship was spurred on really, especially in my high school years, in a really powerful way. And I would attest so much of that to global cross-cultural mission trip. Perhaps it was the thing in my faith formative years that cemented how I want as an adult to serve God with my life. And so it changes. That's what they do. These mission trips change the perspective. They restore sometimes your purpose. It did for me, and it grew my faith unlike anything else in my life. And so I would love for you to take a look at the great work of Child Beyond International. You can go to their website, www.childbeyond.org. childbeyond.org. They work with churches of all denominations, especially a lot in the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, but all denominations. And they would love to partner with you. And if you want to be a part of truly doing global mission work that rescues the least of these, the ones that others might miss, I'm telling you, this is an incredible organization to partner with. So we're going to talk today with Brian Mueller in just a moment. I can't wait for you to hear from him. But if you could please do us a favor, could you subscribe or follow to this podcast? I know I ask it every time, but if you haven't yet, would you do that? Why haven't you done that? It doesn't take very long, like maybe 5 to 10 seconds to do that. So hit that little plus sign or whatever that might be on your platform, subscribe or follow. If you'd leave a rating or a review, that would also mean so much to us. Without further ado, let's get to Brian Mueller and today's episode. Let's do this. All right, we got a treat today on the Red Letter Disciple. We are bringing President Brian Mueller onto the Red Letter Disciple. I don't know if we've had a president before. That's
just
exciting.
No, just an Argentinian president.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that. Yeah. But anyway, Brian Mueller, he joined Grand Canyon University, GCU, in July of 2008 and has really ushered in a new era for this college. He has been a teacher, a basketball coach, and high school and small college level, and even was leading the University of Phoenix for quite some time, a leader in online education. But in the 15 years since he joined GCU, Chris, check this out. He has helped turn this financially struggling university into one that's a driving force. When he got there 15 years ago, enrollment on Phoenix ground campus was approximately 2,600.
Wow.
And now it's like 10 times that, 25,000 plus.
That's crazy.
And online growth up to almost 100,000 students, and maybe even eclipsed it at this point. But anyway, Brian Mueller, welcome to the Red Letter Disciple. It's awesome to have you today.
Yeah.
How's it going today there in beautiful Phoenix? It looks hot, though.
It's really hot, but we love hot in Phoenix. I came here first in 1976. I love the blue skies, the wide open spaces, the hot, dry air. So it is hot, but we love Phoenix, Arizona, and it's exciting. You know, our student leaders, we have about 1,500 student leaders on our campus. They'll be back in about 2 weeks for 3 weeks of training and preparation to lead our students on campus. And then a couple weeks later, our students will be back, and we'll be up and running on the campus again.
Very good. And I think they got it timed out pretty well there in Phoenix, that like they're there, you know, not necessarily in the summer, most students at least. They're there in the good weather parts, which you know, I don't get many of those in Omaha, Nebraska. So
we spoil them. Yeah, they're here between October and May, which is the best weather in the world. And so yeah, but we don't mind spoiling them. They're the best students in the country. We think that are come to Grand Canyon, and we're extremely blessed to have them.
So cool. All right. So President Mueller, I want to know how in the world a guy goes from an education degree from Concordia University in Little Seward, Nebraska, to being a teacher and basketball coach at a high school to now the president at Grand Canyon University. I bet you've got a little bit of a story there. So I want to hear about that.
Yeah, it's amazing what God can do, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing what God can do. I tell our students all the time, when you graduate from here, when you're 22 and you're 22 years old, wherever you think you're going to be when you're 70, and where you end up is probably going to be as far away from what you're thinking right now, right? Life's adventures, an adventure. We tell our students, if you want to give God a good laugh, you tell him what your plans are, because he's got his own, right? You know, I never gave a second thought to being in administration, to be a university president, none of that. I went to Concordia because I wanted to play baseball and basketball. I wanted to be a high school teacher. I had great high school teachers, great high school coaches, and I wanted to teach theology, world history, psychology, sociology, and wanted to coach basketball. And was 2 years at a Catholic school in Michigan, and then 5 years at Denver Lutheran High School. Had a good small high school, or good high school basketball program.
Yeah.
And then went back to Concordia and was their basketball coach, taught in the education department, and had a good small college program. And then came back to Arizona. I came to Arizona where my wife's from, and I was I was enrolled in a PhD program at ASU. I was teaching philosophy as part of a humanities class to freshmen and sophomores, and taking classes. And I was going to finish my doctoral degree and go right back into teaching and coaching, but one thing led to another, and we were living with my brother-in-law, who had a 1,200 square foot house in Tempe, and we were dead broke with 3 kids. And I came home one day towards the end of the second semester, and my wife said we needed to talk, and I got nervous about that, and because I had married way over my head, and she said, we're going to have our 4th child.
Whoa!
And you know how your life just kind of passes right in front of you, and you think my plan's not working. And so I wandered into the University of Phoenix, and they felt sorry for me. I think they hired me, they gave me a job, and I never intended to stay there, but I actually ended up staying there 22 years. I really liked what we were doing. There was this new market emerging in higher ed with working adults going back to school as 35-year-olds and 40-year-olds and earning bachelor's and master's degrees. And I loved the approach we were taking. It was really taking off, and they sent me to New Mexico to run the campus, and they sent me to San Diego to run the campus. And then in 1998, they called me back to Phoenix, and we think this thing Al Gore has done almost single-handedly, this internet that he's invented and gifted to the world.
Amazing.
We'd like to help us think about how to do that, and that became the beginning of University of Phoenix Online, which was just an amazing story. They put me in charge of that. And, you know, in 6 years' time, we'd gone to the public markets to get access to capital. I knew nothing about that. I learned how to do that, learned how to use technology to reach the world. And we went from about 2,000 students to 200,000 students in 6 years.
Wow.
Nobody else was doing that. And so they made me CEO of Apollo Group, which owned the University of Phoenix and a bunch of other things. And, you know, it was being run by a basketball coach, by a history teacher. Yeah. And so after 22 years, Grand Canyon was struggling. They called and said, "Would you come over here?" And I thought, why would I do that? I've gone from nearly homeless to having thousands of friends, and I'm a much different place financially. We're doing fantastic. My kids are doing great. But then I thought, higher education is Christian higher education is too expensive for most people, and colleges are shrinking. Maybe this has been the plan all along, that God has given us a chance to learn how to use the public markets to get access to capital, learn how to use technology to reach the world. Maybe we can create something that will make Christian higher education affordable to all socioeconomic classes of Americans. And I do think that was God's plan all along, because like 100 people came with me from Phoenix over here. We didn't even have to sell our homes. We just moved 20 minutes away. And it was absolutely 100% God's plan, how this all worked out.
That's amazing. So what's more challenging, basketball coaching or president of a university?
It all depends on how good your players are.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely love coaching. I love teaching, but I don't feel like I ever stopped coaching. I just have a bigger team now.
With you being president, could you, like, it is part of your role, could you say, hey, I'm gonna be the coach here at GCU? Is that, I mean, I'm sure there's
force them out. Yeah.
Or maybe assistant, like, just to get those reps in still as the basketball guy.
Yeah.
It's I'll tell you what, we've been to the tournament 3 out of the last 4 years.
Amazing.
And this year, whoa, man, we could be really good. So we got a great coach. Bryce Drew is an unbelievable guy.
Yeah, Bryce Drew. I remember his college career.
Valpo,
he was
right?
Valpo.
His dad was the head coach at Valpo. And Bryce played there, and he hit the shot that got them in the Sweet 16. And his brother Scott's at Baylor.
Yep.
So it's a basketball family, and Bryce is doing a great job. He really doesn't need my help. I provide all the support I can, but we got a good one.
And
That's cool.
You're currently, your basketball team is D1, and you're in the WAC, right? We're in the
Western Athletic Conference for one more year. We've just been invited to come to the West Coast Conference.
Okay.
So we'll be in the same conference as Gonzaga and St. Mary's and Santa Clara, San Diego, Pepperdine, those schools. And so one more year in the WAC, and then we transition to the WCC, which will be another major move up. I think we're going to be ranked in the top 25 to start the year. If not, we'll be very close. So we're excited about the year.
You better be good if you're playing Gonzaga, buddy.
We're ready. We're ready.
I love it. So you're doing a lot with higher ed and online ed, obviously at GCU, but that was a huge piece of your time with University of Phoenix. And I want to kind of go back and hear a little bit maybe of those first discussions around online education and like what those were like. And did you actually think it would work, or what? Were you skeptical? Were you hopeful? Walk me back into that time frame if you can, and what you're thinking at that point, because this is a new thing.
Yeah, and when we started talking about it, it was 1989, 1990. When we really started to get serious about it, it was the mid 90s, and then they kind of turned it over to me in 1997. But we had at Phoenix a very specific learning model approach pedagogically. We were teaching working adults, so we wanted practitioner faculty members. We wanted application-based curriculum. We wanted it to be in an interactive, collaborative, social kind of environment, small group, lots of discussion. And we wanted a big focus on writing, because it's a precursor to critical thinking, which is a precursor to problem solving. And that's what we should be doing with 35-year-old students, teaching them to solve problems. That's what people need. Churches, schools, companies, technology firms, engineering firms. And so our thought was, let's not change anything about how we teach students. Working adult students, practitioner faculty members, application-based curriculum, big focus on writing, critical thinking, and problem solving, but just take students and faculty and put them together on the internet versus having them go to a physical brick and mortar classroom setting. Let's not change anything about the learning model. That was the best decision that we ever made. We weren't going to cram 1,000 students in a classroom and make it, memorization. It was a real interactive, collaborative, almost social learning environment, which attracts working adult students, keeps them interested. and it was in a discussion-based environment. So we were really teaching undergrads, much like graduate students typically get taught at most institutions. And the same thing for grad students and doctoral students. And so then it was just a matter of keeping, continuing to develop the technology. And the reality is that you can get discussions that are based over the course of 7 days versus 2 hours in a brick and mortar setting. You can get more in depth, you can get more participation, you can get more interaction in that environment than you can get in an hour or two in a classroom setting. And so what people thought would be the thing that would be detrimental was absolutely not detrimental. And so it went way better than we thought, and we just kept working at it. And when I left Phoenix, we were almost 400,000 students because everybody was 20 years behind.
Wow.
Now, of course, it's mainstream now. Everybody's doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was approaching it from an educational perspective and understanding what we were trying to do with the students that really made it successful.
That's cool. What's it like kind of being, what are the joys and I suppose the frustrations being a pioneer in doing things that others aren't doing?
Oh, I got interviewed once or twice a week during that period of time at Phoenix. And they would call and say, how dare you bastardize higher education by believing you can deliver it in an online environment. And I would explain what we were doing and how we were doing it. And, people are afraid of change. And faculty members thought that we were going to eliminate the faculty position, but they didn't understand what our approach was.
We still need teachers.
Yes. We created thousands and thousands of faculty opportunities as a result. And so when you think about the uses of the internet and when you think about the church, it was such an amazing lesson. There's all kinds of problems with the internet from a Christian's perspective, but 87, we've got 27,000 students coming to our campus, and they're all on our system, and they submit their assignments between class sessions, and they can talk to their faculty between class sessions. So they use our learning management system. We had 95,000 students online. We have 6,000 students in a hybrid program, and we've got a couple thousand students in another program. Different delivery models, depending upon who the student is and what the nature of what it is they need to learn. But 87% of our students on our campus and online say that their faith has been significantly encouraged and strengthened as a result of their time in our program. And so, when you talk about a Christian university's reach and spreading the gospel, we're teaching 120,000 students every single day, and it's going to grow to 200,000 plus students in just the next couple of years, which I think is an exciting thing from a church perspective.
Which is super impressive because you can look at we see all the time, even in the Concordia system, like small private colleges aren't doing all that well. And some are, but the idea, you guys being so quick to go to online, it was just funny. I was looking here. I see on Wikipedia, Gonzaga, this new conference you're going to, it says Gonzaga enrollment 7,421, University of Pacific 6,652, future member Grand Canyon University enrollment 103,427. That's
amazing.
Pretty big. I'm surprised they let you in, pal.
It was very interesting because the Gonzaga president was in my office. He brought some of his administrative team down here, and he's a really, really good guy. And he said, listen, we're whatever they are in tuition, $50,000 or $60,000 a year, $20,000 in room and board. It's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
He said to me, the number of wealthy 18-year-olds in this country is drying up, and that's basically been our the interesting thing about Grand Canyon is we're very much a middle class play. It's very interesting to me to watch this thing happen. When we first day of class, or the first chapel service we have on the first Monday of the school year, we'll have 7,500 kids jammed into the arena for chapel.
Wow.
And if you've never heard 7,500 kids sing, you've really missed something in your life. But our kids really sing. They really cheer. It's kind of a middle class phenomenon that's happening on a mass scale at a private university, which creates a very interesting culture.
Yeah, super rare. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, with you guys doing all that you're doing on through online education, I think there's been, a number of different opinions on churches and how to use online just for church or for discipleship. And so I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on, does some of the stuff that you're doing in the online education world translate over into the online church world, and how pastors, church leaders might be able to use it for our advantage?
That's an interesting question. Um, yeah, as a side note, before I answer that, the other interesting thing that's happened in Phoenix is we've got about 10 churches in Central Phoenix here that our students just pack into on Sundays.
Yeah.
And about 75% of our students, when they graduate, they stay in Arizona. And these pastors are saying, Central Phoenix is going to be a much different place in 5 or 6 years, much different place. If you keep graduating these students and they keep staying here and they get good jobs and they get married and they raise families and they settle in Central Phoenix, this is going to be a much different place.
Yeah.
So when you talk about transforming cities, having the largest private Christian university in the country in the middle of an inner city, but in the middle of the 5th largest growing city, it's all part of God's plan. I mean, he really wanted to do something here. It's a big part of our learning is promoting really in-depth discussions, and so much of church happens on Sunday, and when you get a message delivered that's very provocative and gets people to think, and it gets people into the Bible, you sometimes you hate leaving church on Sunday knowing that there's all kinds of questions you'd like to answer. There's all kinds of discussion things you'd like to have. Getting together physically during the week, sometimes it's hard, but if you can create discussion groups with parishioners being led by people at the church between Sundays, so that people can discuss what was taught and what was learned and what was discussed on Sunday as a way to keep things present and alive. That's one of the things that really makes our thing go. Our athletes travel, but they have access to their fellow students and their faculty members even when they're on the road, and so they can. The questions can get asked and they can get answered. Assignments can get submitted. They can continue to participate in the discussion. That's one of the things I think that would be very interesting for a church to experiment with.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think as I've been hearing you talk about online education, you keep coming back to the advantage of it, or the beauty of it, is that it isn't constrained to a 1 hour, 2 hour lecture in a classroom. Just like I think the same is true with church, that there's still a really valuable hour 15 if you're preaching long at church on Sunday morning. That's still really very valuable. But man, there's so many hours during the week that this is an amazing tool if we can figure out how to use it, that can spur those conversations on, so it's less so it's more than just 1 hour on a weekend. That's really cool. Yeah. So I love your approach too. And so I'd love for you to talk, because I think I just see so much discipleship happening with your approach to revitalize the area you're in. That yes, we want students and our whole organization to be thriving and to offer education. But there's a really awesome opportunity that I think happens at GCU that I have not heard happening at other universities, that I think is really fascinating. So walk me through that. And is that like an intentional thing? Is it a discipleship thing, or where this like plan to revitalize came from?
Yeah, it's interesting. After we came in 2008, we were $20 million in debt. Actually, there were only 900 students on the campus.
Wow.
33rd Avenue and Camelback in Phoenix was actually the worst place from a crime perspective in the entire valley. Prostitution, drugs, it was a disaster. And so after 3 years, we went to the public markets to get access to capital. we started building out our online program. It started to grow. The ground campus started to grow. We started to add that third platform, and we could see, this might work, and we're going to have money to invest in a campus. Do we really want to build it at 33rd Avenue on Camelback? Most people would tell you you don't invest money in a place like Maryvale if you're going to invest in commercial real estate. But we decided after 3 years in 2011 that we were absolutely going to plant our flag here. The reason was...
What made you decide? Okay, sorry. I was going to say, what made you decide that? It sounds like a nightmare, but go ahead.
Yeah, Lyndon Johnson, the Great Society, the war on poverty, the decisions made in the early 60s were made with the right intent, I believe. But they created the welfare system. They were going to eliminate poverty through the welfare system, and it just has been an abysmal failure. The government has not been able to do anything about deteriorating inner cities and the percent of people that live below the poverty line. They haven't been able to do it. I think the two greatest ideas in history that created the most prosperous society in the world were the free market system and the Christian worldview perspective. If you put those two things together and you put an organization in the middle of an inner city that can grow, you have a chance to do something the government can't ever do. And so we put together this 5-point plan and said, we're going to do something the government can't do. And the first part of it was we need to create jobs. A neighborhood like this, number one, needs jobs. And we've created 16,000 jobs since we came here. We cut 16,000 checks every 2 weeks. We hire people in the neighborhood into entry-level jobs that give them a salary and benefits, and then they can send their kids to college for free here. It's a reason to live in this neighborhood, a reason to stay in this neighborhood. We also spun 10 new businesses off of this one and employ another 600 people. We hire people in the neighborhood, and so a golf course, a marketing company, a production company, a restaurant, a hotel. So we keep spinning businesses off of this one to create more job opportunities. The second thing is safety. We have a huge project with the City of Phoenix and the City of Phoenix Police, and now we've gotten all the major businesses and schools in our neighborhood on board to be part of a community. We're investing in video equipment, in video technology. It's in conjunction with the City of Phoenix Police. We're going to help everybody in the neighborhood we can, but if you're bringing drugs or prostitution, we have to get you out. We're making incredible progress. 27th Avenue, which was the biggest problem in the city of Phoenix, is getting cleaned up day by day, night by night. And the feeling in the community, you can just feel it. The people are taking pride in what we're doing here. The third thing is homes. We have the largest Habitat for Humanity program in the world going here. We've rehabbed over 500 homes. Our goal is 800. We'll get there, and then we'll establish a new goal. The fourth thing is kids and schools. Our kids don't get a lot of help after school with parents that haven't graduated from 8th grade. So we started a huge tutoring program after school. Our kids serve as the tutors. It's open between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Kids bring their homework. That led to a scholarship program. And this fall, we're gonna reach a milestone. We're gonna have awarded 1,000 full ride scholarships because they come right out of our neighborhood, right out of our inner city neighborhood. 100% live below the poverty line. 95% of kids of the students are students of color. They're becoming engineers. They're becoming nurses. They're becoming teachers. That was the fourth thing. And the fifth thing is a thing called CityServe, which is an amazing project run by a guy named Dave Donaldson. I won't go into detail, but we are what's called a hub. We've got a 100,000 square foot warehouse, and we've got 120 points of distribution throughout Arizona, inner city churches. And we get 2 truckloads of almost brand new goods coming in on trucks worth $60,000 a truckload every 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we've gotten brand new tables, chairs, beds, bedding, bunk beds, refrigerators, microwaves into the hands of needy families in the name of Jesus. Over 25,000 families in 2.5 years, and over $12.5 million of brand new goods. And we've only got 2 people running that whole thing. It's all done with volunteer workforce. But the interesting thing in our divided society, we've got universal support in the state of Arizona. John King was always on our campus. Governor Ducey is always on our campus. Kirsten Sinema, who's very left in her thinking, and a senator in Arizona. When I went to Arizona recently and to meet with her. She gave me a big hug. She sat down and she said, "How can I help you?" And it shocked the other people that were in the room, because her and I disagree on a lot of things, but she grew up very, very poor. And she identifies with what we're doing in the community, how we're reaching out and making an impact and transforming that. And that rises above the political divide.
Yeah. As it should. Yeah.
And we're watching that winsome approach happen. And it's really a great example for our students. But that's kind of and that was all part of God's plan in putting us here. I'm sure of it.
So how on earth does a university get $12 million worth of products to put into and distribute? I can't imagine the kind of partnerships that you must have.
So it starts this way. We have contracts with the major retailers, okay. Amazon, Walmart, Target, etc. And they sell goods into the marketplace. A percent gets returned, and they were putting that stuff on trucks and taking it to landfills.
Oh.
And Dave Donaldson, who was working in the Trump administration and worked with Ivanka Trump to say, we can build a national organization to take this stuff rather than to landfills. Let's take it to these hubs who will distribute it through pods, and we can get this stuff into the hands of people that need it. That's where it started. Now it's just multiplying because everybody wants to be a part of it. A company called me after we got started and said, our nonprofit's called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And I said, well, what do you guys do? And they said, well, we build bunk beds. And so they showed up and we built 80 bunk beds in 3.5 hours with our honor students. And we got them into the hands of families whose kids have been sleeping on the floor.
Amazing.
And it's just the thing's multiplying now. But it's a way for us it's a way for us. We wanted our faith expression to be one of that would be visible and that would be relentless, and it would be, identifying with those people who have the least of these, the people that have the greatest needs. That's the irresistible way to live. You just can't resist that, regardless of what political side you're on. You can't resist that.
Yeah, and I love that, and obviously as this goes out, we're just over a month away from a very political, and it's a divisive time. But I just love the fact that when you are truly doing the work of Christ and taking care of the least of these, there are some things that cut through all the political noise, ideologies, that people can center on. And I do find that beautiful. And you guys are a great example of that. By the way, Chris got this jacket off of Amazon. It might have been like $18.99. So if this comes to you guys, would you redistribute it, or would this actually just go to the landfill, do you think?
No, we will absolutely find somebody that would be proud to wear that jacket. Don't worry about that. We get the craziest thing. We took off about 12 kayaks off of a truck. And so but we got a Christian camp in northern Arizona that needed kayaks, and so they're up at the Christian camp. So
you have no idea what's coming in the truck when it comes.
It's like Christmas. You open that truck up and you have no idea what's coming off it, but that's part of the
How often does it come? How often does it show up?
Every 2 weeks we get 2 trucks, but then we're getting a lot more than that now because companies are just calling. What's the name of the company? I can't remember. They do beds and bedding and
Sleep Number,
Purple, Casper.
Anyway, they had a bunch of stuff that was last year's stuff, and they said, we got 6 truckloads. Will you take it?
Sure.
Bring it. It's amazing. You get a 4-year-old that's been sleeping on the floor, and you put them in a brand new bunk bed. And I think, by the time they're 7 or 8, they're going to say, who are these Christians and why did they care about me? And why am I sleeping in this bed? And I just think it's a very, very impactful way to teach people about who Jesus was.
Are there other universities doing stuff like this? I've never heard of even other private. I know like private universities serve, but I've never heard to this scale, extent.
Right? Yeah.
It's interesting. It's become part of our brand. It's become part of who our students are. I could give you another 100 projects that are going on that are strictly student led. St. Vincent de Paul Homeless Shelter is about 3 miles from here, and if you go down there on Monday morning at 5 o'clock, over half the volunteers will be GCU students.
Wow.
They really make that thing go. I was leaving campus towards the end of last year, and a bunch of kids were walking the other way, and I could tell they wanted to talk. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And so they stopped, and I figured out who the leader was. I said, "What you guys been up to?" And they wanted, there was about 15 of them. There's a Syrian refugee apartment complex about 2 miles from campus on 18th Avenue in Camelback. They go down there twice a week, and they help the kids with their homework and teach them English as a second language by helping them with their homework. They do that twice a week. I didn't know anything about that. And so the outreach into the community is what people thought was going to be a real detriment, has become an absolute blessing to us. And it just seems like the more our students bless the community, the more, I walk around campus. We've put $2 billion into this campus.
Wow.
We've got brand new residence halls and classrooms and laboratories, 32 restaurants, 6 swimming pools, 7 fitness areas, all the Division I athletic facilities. You look at it and you go, how in the world could this have happened? It started 14 years ago.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Zach and I had a former boss that said to us, a senior pastor, he said, I want our church to be the kind of place that if it goes out of business, the Muslims will be sad, because we do so much serving. And I feel like that's kind of what you've created. Like if something happened to GCU, God forbid, I feel like there would be a lot of people in that community that would be heartbroken. Bravo. Well done to you and God. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We've got these programs we've signed contracts with the New York Public School District, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. We just signed a big contract with the Los Angeles School District. These are some of the most liberal public school districts in the country, but we figured out that there doesn't need to be a teacher shortage. There's 1 million paraprofessionals in the country right now working in public schools. The biggest challenge for public schools is teachers. Mm-hmm. And we went to them and said, you watch these people work inside your schools every day. They make $15,000 to $20,000 a year. They have partially completed degrees. If we can bring the education inside your school district, we can get them to the baccalaureate level. Would you license them? I said, you watch them work every day. You know which ones can connect with kids, can connect with families. Your future teacher force is right here. Most of them are single mothers. And once they become a licensed teacher, they jump to $60,000 or $70,000. They get full benefits. Their hours are the same as their kids' hours. They have a retirement plan. And one of the first classes that they take in this paraprofessional program, we call it, is the Christian worldview. And I haven't had a single complaint yet.
Cool.
Knock on wood, but I haven't had a single complaint. But our ability to understand their needs and do what we can to deliver help to them has complete. The Los Angeles Public School District wouldn't let us breathe inside their 1,300 schools for the last 10 years. Yeah. And all of a sudden now we've got a contract with them to be the exclusive provider because they see us as offering a service to them that nobody else wants or is capable of offering. So
it's good.
Yeah,
it's such a beautiful thing. I think sometimes, Peter, and it's in the Word of God, it talks about how we're always, to be ready, be prepared to give an answer for the hope that we have, and which we should always be ready to give that. But before an answer, question needs to be asked. What makes them so different, and why do you have that joy, or why? And I just see you guys being that question. Like you're forcing a lot of people that naturally might be skeptical or cynical to ask questions and to be curious and to look in. And when they look in, they see something pretty beautiful. So I love it, President. It's amazing. And I want to double in a little bit. We talked to, I know you got students that are on campus and then online. And so I know the age, is very extensive, but a lot of those on campus, I know, are Gen Zers and younger folk. And we just hear a lot of negativity for whatever reason in the Christian space about Gen Z. And there's a lot of worry. about their faith and what will come of it. You've got a front row seat to tens of thousands of these students. And so I'd love to kind of hear, I probably heard a little bit already, but just can you give some hope and encouragement to listeners today around Gen Z and what it's like and what you're seeing in this generation?
Yeah, that's a great question. We about 70% of our students that come to our ground campus, those are 18-year-old students leaving high school and going to college. About 70% are Christians, and they come here because they want their faith strengthened. They want to be in this kind of environment. About 30% come from a different reason. They may have a different faith. They may have no faith. But we want them here. We're a missional institution. We tell them you have to expect that, every one of our programs and courses is taught from a Christian worldview perspective. And so we have to be who we say we are. We have a doctrinal statement. It's based largely on the Nicene Creed. We have a set of ethical position statements. We state openly that we believe that life begins at conception, that we believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And a lot of those 30% come here not believing those things, but they still come here. They want to play in our baseball team. They want to, they love our technology or engineering programs or whatever. And so our students that come with their Christian faith have got to learn to live in an environment with people who are not Christians, and that's how they're going to have to live their life. But when they come to me and say, why don't you make chapel mandatory? I say, because you're 19 years old now, and you need to make your faith your own. And if you keep going and you're getting something out of it, eventually those kids that are not Christians are going to say, well, why are they going? They don't have to. They're there. They must be getting something out of it. Same with the Bible studies in the dormitories. We don't make those mandatory. But then most importantly, kids watch the tremendous efforts made at service. And Peter also says, in addition to what you said, be ready to defend your faith. He also said, just never tire of doing good.
Yeah.
Because at some point, that's going to come back. And so the focus on serving, and it's almost like when I went to college in the mid 70s, it was the Peace Corps. And as I remember going into teaching, and they said, well, God bless you for being here, but we don't know if we can get you a job because everybody wants to be a teacher. Well, that's completely flipped now. But I see in this generation a real desire to be involved in ministry. Some want to be pastors and some want to be teachers, but we got a lady that lives in our neighborhood. I'll try to make this story quick, but she started a company or a nonprofit called I'm trying to think of the name of it now. Anyway, she was trafficked on 27th Avenue for 11 years. And she got out and she got clean, and she entered one of our programs on campus, and she earned a degree in accounting, and she's got a financial position at a major hospital. She got married to a guy that was in jail for 10 years for the same kind of activities on 27th Avenue. He's and electrician's business. After she graduated with the accounting degree, she entered our MDiv program. 3 years, Greek, Hebrew, everything. Her and her husband now have a ministry in our neighborhood, and they have 10 churches that are supporting them. They travel 27th Avenue all night long, 2 nights. They've got 2 buses. The girls call them the Jesus buses. They'll pull up on a corner where there are literally prostitutes on the corner. They'll get on the bus because she's got food and things to drink, and she's got hygiene products. If any of them want out, she'll drive them immediately, lock the bus, and drive them immediately to a safe house. They've got 5 safe houses they take them to. They've got bullet holes in the back of that.
Wow.
Of that hole. But she will literally walk up to a pimp and put her hands on both sides of his face at 2:00 in the morning and ask Satan to come out of him. This woman is absolutely amazing. Now, our kids hear about this ministry and they want to jump into I said, no, you can't go out there. You can't go out there. But she's got a thrift shop, so our kids are in that thrift shop, and they're making that. But they're looking for opportunities like that to do ministries.
Yeah.
And it's really encouraging.
That's amazing.
It's really encouraging. So I'm encouraged by it. We'd love to have you guys come out and visit our campus sometime and talk to our students.
Well, we always come out during best practices. We should swing over when we come check out best practices.
Yeah.
We would love to have you. We'd love to have you. And yes, that's a good time of the year to come. Don't come in July.
Right. I came in July last year. I guess preached at a church in Buckeye, Arizona for 2 weekends in a row. And we stayed the week. And it was that middle stretch of July last year where I think you guys set the record 25 days in a row, like over 115 or something.
It's rough.
Oh, man, that was hard.
It's rough.
Like, I want to come back in the winter next time. But I think you do such a fascinating job of like living in the Christian space, but still intersecting with the public sphere. I mean,
Yeah.
even like the funding, right? Because you guys are a publicly funded university, and yet there's a Christian feel. How do you navigate or get in the middle of what sometimes a lot of us would want to avoid, and it feels like come out on a positive side?
Good question.
You know, it's we got the fastest growing business school in the country. And I think it's the largest business school in the country now. This thing happened organically, but it's amazing how many students we have now that are majoring in business, finance, accounting, marketing, whatever, and they're minoring in biblical studies. And we tell our students, I love Concordia. I was back there just a couple years ago. I had an unbelievable experience there. But the one thing I thought they got wrong was when we graduated, those of us that were going into the teaching or preaching ministries got calls into sacred vocations. Everybody else got a job. And it's ironic because it was Martin Luther who said, every occupation is equally honoring in God's eyes.
Yeah.
And there is no sacred and secular in God's eyes. It's all sacred. It's all his. And so what we're trying to convince our students of is that if they have a passion for biology or chemistry or business or entrepreneurship, they're being called by God in that. And that's going to be every bit of the sacred vocation as becoming a pastor or a teacher is. The reason we can't get biology doctorates is because we've told people for too many years in the church, in my opinion, that that's great that you have a passion for biology or if you have a passion for whatever. But if you really want to serve Jesus, you've got to go to the seminary and be a pastor. And you just don't have to. We need to get kids believing that they're going to have a ministry in whatever occupation they're going in, so that we have influence in every sphere of society. And we're getting there with that. Yes, when we came here, we had the debt, we had no resources. And I said, well, we can say as a nonprofit, I can go try to raise 10 or $15 million. That's not going to do much.
Mm-hmm.
But we learned how to go to the public markets. The free market system has built the best economy that's existed in the history of the world. And we were successful. I mean, that was a miracle, really, because it was 2008 that we did it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But we got the stock out at $12. It was the first public offering that got out in 90 days, the longest streak in the history of Wall Street with no public offerings coming out. That gave us $254 million. We brought that back to Phoenix. We put that capital to use, and this thing started growing. And yes, we owe a return on that investment, but we haven't raised tuition in 16 years.
Wow.
We have a model now where our students are paying less tuition than the average state university student. We haven't raised it in 16 years. Our students are taking out less debt than the average state university student. And so the free market system works. Now, if you combine it with the Christian worldview perspective, and you don't let it get out of hand, and you're doing things for the right reason and with the right mission and purpose, it's an example of how. And so, it's the students. The students know that we're the GCE, which is a publicly traded service company, is right in the middle of the marketplace.
Yeah,
our stock is worth $150, and so they'll come to me, these business students, and they'll want to know how this works. Our investors, if I would go out tomorrow and say we're going to raise tuition 3%, just 3% the next 3 years, our stock would explode even further, but we're not going to do it because we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Our investors are getting a very good return, but we don't have to get it exorbitant at the expense of our students. And that's why And so hopefully we can stay in that place where we can balance the objectives in a way that it works for everybody. And it's just a whole different approach.
Yeah, and I just, I know you get here a lot, but you're a brilliant mind and a brilliant strategist in it. And gosh, that tension's got to be difficult, and yet you've managed it. Of like, yeah, we want to make our shareholders happy, but we also have students on the other end, and both of them are like lower prices for the students, higher prices for the share, and yet there's this beautiful thing that's happening through it all. The stockholders have done very well. The students are thriving, and God is just doing really powerful things through you and your university. And I love what you said about the vocation. I think too, I'm a 4th generation Lutheran LCMS pastor, and I love my call at my church and to pastor God's people. But I've got 2 boys, and one of them's going to be a junior next year. By the way, GCU's on a short list to visit, so we'll be there visiting for the sake. But he's a business guy. I think he's going to go into business, and I'm like, great, man, I love that. And now that I know you got the largest business school, I'm going to push that even more for him. But I want him to know that it's not a bad thing. He's not breaking a generational thing if he doesn't be a pastor. Like that's God in him. But we need to, like you said, intersect all the spheres, and you do that so well. So, all right, Brian.
I wish I would have got some of that GCU stock when it was 15.
Let us know when you're doing that again, please.
GCU stock currently at $152 right now.
Go.
So that's amazing.
Brian, we ask all our guests, we want to challenge our listeners to be greater disciples. So if you could issue a challenge this week that they could practically do, what challenge would you throw down?
I think take very seriously, and I know Christians do, but the life of Jesus. When I get somebody that's not a believer, I don't hand them a Bible. I ask them to read the book of John. If you start at Genesis and you start reading, by the time you get to Leviticus, you're so lost you don't. But if you read the book of John twice and then come back and talk to me, invariably people will say, if that's what you are, if that's who you are, I'd like to hear more about that. And so I guess the challenge is a challenge I make to a lot of our students. Don't be afraid to go into the darkest places. Don't be afraid to. I was very nervous about spending all this money and building this campus here in the middle of this neighborhood, and how this thing would turn out, whether it would help us or be a hindrance to us. But it absolutely has been a blessing, and so don't be afraid to take Jesus into the darkest places in our society, because God blesses that work in ways that we don't even expect.
Beautiful. All right, listeners, take on that challenge. Let us know, #RedLetterDisciple, or email us hello@redletterchallenge.com so we can support you, encourage you, and hopefully hear some great stories of what God's doing in those dark places through you. So, all right, Chris, what you got for President Brian here?
We make a custom, very short game for all of our interviewees. So we've created a new game for you. I know you've been in education for a long time. You've probably had to administer some tests. We are going to currently test you, President, on your knowledge. Right, currently you're in the WAC, but you are going to the West Coast Conference. So we're going to see. We're going to give you about 5 different schools. We're going to see if you know the mascots of this conference that you're going into. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to start easy. Founded in 1887 out of Spokane, Washington, the Zags out of Gonzaga University. What is their official mascot?
I think they're the Bulldogs.
1 for 1. That's right. Perfect.
And Concordia, Nebraska was the Bulldog. That was an easy one for me.
That was easy. All right, let's go here. Oh, wow. So you are listed as a future member joining in 2025. All right. This university out of San Diego, if you get this, I'll be amazed. I love college sports. I have no idea who this mascot is, but founded in 1949, joining the conference in 1979. Out of San Diego, California, the University of San Diego. What is their mascot?
The Toreros.
My goodness, that is fantastic. For bonus points,
I've never heard of that.
For bonus points, what the heck is a Torero?
I have no idea, but when I was at Concordia, we played them in San Diego. I never got screwed as bad as we did at that place, I'll tell you, by the officials.
Damn, producer, do you know what a Torero is?
Off the top of my head, no, sir.
All right. Well, thanks for
Sounds like
nothing.
something you order at a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah,
A
exactly.
sombrero,
I'll take it.
tortilla.
Mexican cowboy or something. So,
Okay. And then this school also has been to the dance a few times. Out of Los Angeles, California, founded in 1865, this private Catholic Jesuit school, Loyola Marymount. What is their mascot?
Loyola Marymount. We played them 2 years ago and beat them, by the way.
Nice.
I can't remember their Lions.
Oh my goodness, he pulls it
You got it?
with no time left.
Yeah.
He
Is it
drains
the Lions?
Yeah, it's the Lions. You got it.
More
All right.
important to beat your opponent than know your opponent. I think we
Exactly.
learned
Okay.
that.
This is the absolute last one. Let's see if you can be the first contestant all year to go 4 for 4 on their own game. All right. This university, founded in 1937, has an attendance of around 6,000 people. Also, a pretty healthy endowment at 1.2 billion. Out of Malibu, California, the Pepperdine University. What is their mascot?
That one's not the Waves.
That's it.
Wow.
4 for 4. You did it. You know your new conference. You're clearly the best president in the entire West Coast Conference. Well done, sir. We love what you're doing out there.
Yeah, awesome.
you.
President Mueller, if people want to connect with you or GCU, where's the best place for them to get everything they need?
Just go to our website or brian.mueller@gcu.edu.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Brian, for who you are. And we'll put those show notes, those links in the show notes, and for living up to the great disciple God's calling you to be. You're impacting so many tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives every year.
I'm
So,
just imagining.
appreciate you.
So you have an attendance of what, 100,000 people?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if 1% of the student population emails the president every day? This poor man, he's going to get just barreled with.
There you go.
All right.
Very good. Well, thank you, President Mueller. Take care, bud.
Thank you very much. Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I can't believe what God has done through Brian and his ministry. And that's what it is. I know he's a president of the university, but it is a ministry. His philosophy is very much Jesus-centered. He's serving the city. He's bringing different people of different groups together, public and private, political, Republican, Democrat, poor, rich. Like, they're all coming together. When you serve Jesus, like, all of these organizations are coming together, and their school is just exploding because of it too, in a good way, exploding. And so, hey, check out Brian Mueller and all the things at Grand Canyon University with the show notes got all those links in our show notes at redletterpodcast.com, as well as a link to check in with our partner, Child Beyond International. Take a look at this organization if you want to be a part of doing global ministry work that truly is transforming the least of these. This is the organization to partner with. So check them out at childbeyond.org or go to redletterpodcast.com. Next week, we got an amazing guest coming on. They're all amazing, but I really like this guy too. He's another Canadian. I think we've had 4 or 5 Canadians on now. Daniel M. is joining us next week. He's a pastor of the lead pastor of Beulah Alliance Church in Edmonton, Alberta. He's also a podcaster and author. His newest book is The Discipleship Opportunity. So we're going to look at the opportunity we have. And he helps us see he's a data guy too. So he helps us see from new data a different way, and an opportunity is for us to do discipleship today. A really cool framework that I think you're going to want to hear about. And we're going to dive deep into what it looks like to really do discipleship today. And also, is discipleship in Canada and America that different from one another? We're going to find all that out and more. So don't miss next week's episode. Don't miss it by following, by reviewing, hitting that plus sign. And we'll see you back next week for the next episode of the Red Letter Disciple.